One more minute and we'll get started. Don't forget to do your Google form and then get on the whiteboards. We'll talk about the week at a glance and our targets. All right, get started. I'll keep letting people in. Should be able to see my screen. I'm going to switch over to your week at a glance just to talk about the targets for the week and then how we're going to meet those targets. And so the targets, compare your reproductive strategies and survivorship curves. So knowing about what that R versus K stands for, both the type of organism, like R for roaches and K for kangaroos, and what the actual K means in terms of carrying capacity and R for rate of growth. So that's target one. And you're going to see that in several of the Edpuzzle videos. Target 2 is a review of middle school, which is knowing about all your species interactions, commensalism, mutualism, parasitism, all those different ones. There's a note on the, what do you call it, speaker notes section. And that's just me when I'm grading your Edpuzzles, noting some misconceptions. So it says virus down there. Virus is considered not living. It's considered a selfish chemical. So if we're talking about species interacting, it doesn't meet the definition of a species. So be aware of that. That would not count. You have to actually be living, which means you would have to have one or more cells and meet those criteria of life. And then number 3 is the types of succession, which is what we're going to focus on today. So knowing the difference between primary, secondary, and then the last part of your chapter is how aquatic biomes like ponds and lakes change over time. So those are our targets. And on your on-demand day, you should have worked on your chapter 6 pair deck and then take notes on the other daily video. It says daily video 1, which is a bummer. So I will make sure that we do daily video 2 today. And then I forgot to post this in your classwork last week. So if you already did it, great. If you didn't, because you didn't see it in the classwork, it is there now, which is that book creator. So going through your missed concepts from your final and adding study slides up to 10. So if you didn't miss 10 concepts, then you don't need to do 10, but however many up to 10 that you did miss. Our next Zoom session, we are going to do composting and talk about the bread mold experiment. So I have links here. One is for the actual experiment. The other one is a document of what I messed around with. And I will tell you that all of my bread from my quote original thought has nothing on it still. And my accident bread on the bagel from Costco was perfect. It grew very quickly and it's kind of completely, probably should throw it away at some point, but it looks like that now. So my recommendation is fresh, unpreserved breads over cheap, highly packed with preservatives bread if you want your experiment and your data quickly. So I put some pictures of that I took. I should have taken a picture on day 1, which I did not, but day 2, day 3 are all there. And we'll talk about that next session, like ways I would improve it. And then you'll have your lab team time. So please note from tomorrow till Sunday, these tests are visible. that you're going to take on chapter 6. One of them is our normal Launchpad one where you have 3 attempts and I record the best score. The other one though is one I made on the College Board for chapter 6. So we're going to start using their questions much more often, so you can start seeing the examples of how they're going to use graphs and data and charts. That one will be curved. So the other one is going to be out of 10 or changed out of 10. You should be able to get 100% on that. And then the second one, it'll be whoever has the highest score will be the max points, which usually is somebody who will get 100%, but just so you're aware of that. Let's see, that's it. Let's move back to here. We are on whiteboards. So I see Isla, Heather, Jason, Jesse, Laura, Mia, Nyan, Ryan, Shivan, and Vivian. If you could all get on whiteboards, we're going to watch video number 2 on the daily videos on Succession. I'll be pausing it and asking you questions based on the video you watched yesterday, as well as what she's presenting today. So before we jump into video number 2, which is straight from the College Board, I'm on 2.7. Give me 3 words that would show me that you know the difference between primary and secondary succession. So on your whiteboard, in 3 words or less, what would be the difference between primary succession in an ecosystem and secondary succession in an ecosystem? Enzo, no, you're not doing another 10. I just forgot to completely post it. And so some students, if they don't see it posted, they don't do it. So I just wanted to officially post it on the classwork tab. So 3 words, what would demonstrate? Oh, Laura, good. Exactly. Where's Laura? Just looking at your faces. I will be marking off your faces too here. Oh, so I started, I thought more of this over the weekend and put on Skyward a 4-point system. And what I mean by a 4-point system is need a way for parents to monitor and for me to have a record of what I call engagement. I usually use typically 4 platforms of engagement. So I have Zoom, especially in anatomy, we're pointing out skulls and stuff. So we're practicing kinesthetically. So I have Zoom. I have whiteboards, so I can see if you're engaged with the whiteboards. We have Pear Deck. And then we usually play a game at the end. So there's 4. So 4 is exemplary, meaning you're taking advantage of all of those. It is not hurting your grade. It's just a record. So it says it's actually helping your grade because it's out of 0. If you see a 3, that's proficient. That means you'd use 3 of those 4 platforms during class. And then 2, you're developing. So 2 of them were not. For example, in one of my classes yesterday, when I checked the Kahoot, a particular student had missed all the questions, and it was pretty obvious they were not engaged in the game, because you'll see from the game there's no way after seeing the same question 5 times you would keep missing it. Okay, so 1 means there was only 1 platform that you were engaged in. So just so you know, when you see that in Skyward, that's just a record, a running record. So I can go back and look and say, hey, I saw a black box and no engagement. So this is not shocking that they are not doing well now on the test. And that way also parents can check there too. All right, so I see some of you, and like Laura said, soil or no soil is the big thing I'm looking for. So no soil, bare rock, that can be lava or that could be a melting glacier. But if there was no soil there, then it was primary. And that would take a long time to make soil versus if there was previously soil and like a fire comes through and you change your ecosystem after that disaster, that's secondary. So there was already an ecosystem there beforehand. So we're going to look at the next part of that series on succession. And then we'll see what you know at the end of class as well on this topic in a game. Can everybody see my screen still? Yeah, okay. Let arrow down. And I think I just made Unit 3 visible College Board till the end of February, which will be next week.
Joining me. I'll see you next time on AP Daily.
Apparently that was the end of it.
Hi, it's Ms. Fassler. Welcome back to our last video on Unit 2, Biodiversity, Topic 2.7, Ecological Succession. We're going to take what we already established in the first video and dig a little bit more deeply into that. Whereas in the first section on ecological succession, we learned what primary and secondary succession were. Today, we're going to look at what happens in a disturbed area in terms of the amount of biomass, richness, and productivity, and how those changes set the stage for new species to come in. Let's take a look at an example. The first question we're going to ask is, why are these pioneer species so capable of moving into unoccupied habitat and adapting so quickly?
Oops. So I was supposed to stop that. So before we go any further on your whiteboard, if we're talking about primary succession on bare rock, what are some pioneer species that are able to do that are able to outcompete or come in? What are some of the pioneer species that you would see? Good, Laura, Jason. Don't forget to press enter. Some of your whiteboards are blank at the moment. Good, Isla, there we go. Audrey, yes. Ashley, good. All right. Tyler, I think you have something there. If you could enlarge your font, that would be awesome. And Isla's, she's testing the limits of my vision, but I can tell it said lichen, and that is correct.
Well, for one thing, they're really good competitors, and they're often able to outcompete established vegetation that survived the disturbance. They tend to have a very broad ecological tolerance. They can survive in a broad range of abiotic conditions, and if we have some type of disturbance, we're probably going to alter those conditions. They're really adaptable. They are able to quickly pass on beneficial genetic traits. And finally, over time, one species begins to alter that habitat to make the conditions more favorable for new species. Maybe it does a really good job of adding nitrogen to the soil so that a larger species or a new species can move in. Let's take a look at how productivity, biomass, and richness change during the disturbance of an ecosystem.
So before she talks about net productivity or productivity in general, what is productivity a fancy word for? What process is productivity measuring? So on your whiteboard, what process, when we say the word productivity, are we talking about for an ecosystem? Yes, Jason, good. Yes, Jesse. Maddie, good. Enzo, good. Thank you, Ryan, for helping other people on their tech settings. Okay, good. See, I see something on everyone's whiteboard except Leo. Leo, yours is blank.
So first we have a mature ecosystem that has gone through that whole process of succession, and after quite a long period of time, I have a big mature oak tree versus an area that's been newly disturbed and is predominantly grasses. Remember, biomass is the mass of all the biological material. So obviously an mature oak forest is going to have a much greater biomass. A tree's got a lot of material on it that weighs a lot. Species richness is also going to be higher in that mature oak community than in a newly disturbed community. And the reason for that is the more mature and stable my ecosystem is, the greater the diversity of habitats and different kind of niches or roles organisms can fill. So lots more species present. Remember, productivity is the rate at which those producers can turn over carbon and make sugar, food, that they can then pass up the food chain. And an oak forest is going to have a lot more photosynthesis and a much higher rate of productivity than a grass newly disturbed ecosystem. Let's get a little practice on this. Scientists calculated the net productivity and species richness of two different ecosystems. The results are summarized below. You can see that ecosystem A.
So we're going to compare these two. Like, tell me what would you say about how these two compare when it comes to disturbance levels that they might be experiencing and their diversity? So make some sort of statement that compares these two to what your prediction would be for their disturbance levels or what's going on with their productivity and their richness. On your whiteboards, just using A versus B. Make a guess. Good. Some of you are saying greater than, less than, right? It's got to be increasing, decreasing, or stay the same. So make a comparison. I'm going to say this a lot. The worst that can happen is you'll be wrong. And the worst that happens when you're wrong is you get to learn something today. And that is okay. Good, Enzo. I see yours. Right.
Had a pretty high productivity measured in kilocalories per meter squared per year, the amount of energy per unit area per unit of time. They had 15 different plant species and 23 different animal species. Ecosystem 2 had less than half that productivity, much lower plant species, and much lower animal richness. What can you conclude about the level of disturbance in each ecosystem? Explain. Remember, we're looking for patterns and trends in the data, being able to explain those patterns and trends, and finally drawing a conclusion from that. I could conclude that ecosystem B has a greater level of disturbance. It's going through some type of ecological secondary succession. I might say that ecosystem B has a much lower productivity, which indicates a lower biomass or fewer large trees. And finally, ecosystem B has lower diversity, meaning it doesn't probably represent that mature, complex community with a lot of diverse habitats and complex niche structure. What should we take away? Well, in general, since this is the last video from Unit 2 on biodiversity, remember that biodiversity in ecosystems is a key component to sustaining life. We looked at all these different disturbances that happen over all of these vast different time scales that can be natural or human caused. And the greater my diversity, the greater that ecosystem is able to withstand those type of disturbances. Organisms within ecosystems have to adapt to changes created by these ecosystems, by these disturbances. We're going to have a chance to stay tuned for Unit 3, where you're going to have a chance to explore population change over time in much greater detail. Thanks for joining me.
Right.
I'll see you next time.
And our next chapter is going to be about human populations and looking at the exact same thing, but specifically for humans. We're going to go now and practice again all of this information, but we're going to use instructor paste pair deck, except for that I just accidentally X'd out of everything. That was good. All right, that I had all ready for you guys. I don't know how I did that. Oh, there we go. Nope, you guys don't need vertebra. So I'm going to put a link in your chat box. I got to go open everything again. And then we will practice the last part of this lecture. So if your computer has problems with the whiteboards being up at the same time, you can close out your whiteboard window, and we're going to be opening and using this pair deck. And I think I fixed all of the multiple choice that may not have worked for you before, should be working now. The very end of the chapter. So we're going to scroll to the very end where it starts talking about succession. As soon as mine loads. There we go. Maybe. Okay. Mine's very slow. I'm going to X out of the whiteboard as well. Okay, so it gave me a link, so this should work. So I'll be watching on here, but I'm going to first take you to the end of the chapter. It is struggling. I wonder if my daughter is doing something. All right, it says 18 of you are there. $19 of you are there. All right, so be patient with it. Eventually it will show up. I'm going to be, I see 19 of you on there now. 29 of you in there. Okay, so we're going to kind of skip ahead to where we left off from last week. Make sure when you practice these on the classwork tab, it's set at student pace, that you go to wherever you need the most work and set a timer. And that's how long you work on it, is that amount of time. So I'm going to skip through the relationships. It tends to be one that you guys do well on and understand. All right, here we go. So ecological succession is our kind of focus for today and what our game will be on as well. And we already discussed this, but go ahead and write what you think. There we go. I already see you guys doing it. Make my screen much bigger so I can see all of you. All right, I have 29 of you, waiting on a few of you, 8 of you have not responded yet, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 of you. John, Gavin, are you awake? Respond, please. And if you're having issues, put it in the chat box. I'm only waiting on John. John, are you there? There we go. Excellent. Okay. And everyone got that. Primary. In the game, they're going to show you images. So always be prepared to interpret diagrams and images and pay attention to those in your chapter. Those graphs and those tables are really the emphasis on your new tests for AP College Board stuff. Secondary succession happens when there's some sort of disturbance. So this is able to colonize new areas rapidly and grow well in full sunshine. We just looked at this in the video from the College Board. What are those species known as? Because they are the first to arrive. Good, waiting on 4 of you. Leo, there we go. Amelia, excellent. So yes, those are pioneer species. And again, being able to know that there's already soil here. So this sort of change is reflecting a secondary succession. And then the very last part of your chapter is on aquatic and what's happening over time to aquatic systems. How rich your community is influenced by these kind of first 2 factors. What are these factors called? Where as we move from the equator to the poles of the globe, we're going to see less richness. And the longer time you give, the more opportunities you have for speciation into different niches. So what's the word for that? For time. I'm waiting on 4 of you. Two of you. Ryan, you should, there we go. Okay, you went and fixed it. Good. Now I just need 1 of you. Ashley, how are you doing? Ashley, are you still there? Are you having problems with your Pear Deck? Please put answers into your chat box if it's a tech issue. There we go. Okay, let's move on. So I saw most of you with latitude and time. Those are 2 things that are going to influence how many different species we're going to see in a community or ecosystem. There is, we had this as a bonus lab, the theory of island biogeography. I will repost it. We aren't going to do it as a required activity. It's really easy to model and simulate though. So this theory says which one, larger or smaller habitats will have more species, and whether you're farther or closer to your mainland, so the island's distance from the mainland, how do those affect species richness? And there's really simple modeling that you can do with like a blanket being your islands or towels or whatever, and then you're throwing things and looking at data or throwing them randomly up from the mainland and seeing what happens that you can do. Right, it's 6 more, 50-50. You're just putting larger or smaller and then farther or closer. All right, Vincent and John, as soon as you've got your answers in there, we will move on. There we go. And again, whenever we see these kind of problems and be able to read that same idea from a graphic form. So here we're looking at the number of bird species and we're looking at the size of the island and then plotting it to get those trends and those patterns from that theory of island biogeography. Your case study, remember one of your required videos is to watch something about the black-footed ferrets. I think I put 3 different choices on there. All right, this is the part I hope I have fixed. So go ahead and put an A, B, C, D, or E for your correct order of your ecological levels. This is target 1 for chapter 6. One thing I like about this that you should be able to do is if you were wrong, that's okay. But then you should be able to go back and fix it and look at what's the right answer. So for example, if I do this, I'm gonna show you guys my screen that I'm watching. And we can go back and fix that thought on what's at the actual correct order. And everyone's responded except Josh. Josh, are you still there? It's not working. Okay, so just put your guess in the chat box instead. And then the answer was C. So we have individuals or organisms, a whole bunch of them living in the same place, same time, same species is a population. Then we add in other species interacting, so 2 or more. But we're still talking about living species. Ecosystem is when we start adding in those abiotic factors, and then the entire biosphere of living and non-living things is our last level of complexity. All right, which of these is not going to have a significant effect on the number of offspring produced by a population? And I'm going to go like this again to see if you agree or disagree with your peers. Okay, got everybody. So yeah, just because you are distributed in a clumped pattern versus even is really not going to change whether you actually have offspring and get impregnated, right? So it doesn't really matter how you're distributed as a group. That's not going to change your number of offspring necessarily compared to all the others. All right, what is intrinsic growth rate? So this is part of your virtual lab learnings from last week on that population ecology lab. Learning about intrinsic growth rates. What are those? Okay, I'm gonna look at this now and reassess. Good. So intrinsic means if you had no other limiting factors, if you were actually able to look at your potential growth rate, right, under ideal conditions, that's intrinsic growth rates. Waiting for one more of you. Leo. Okay, there we go. Inbreeding depression. What is inbreeding depression? I'm going to share this because you guys are on the right track and the answer is missing, but you are correct. Okay, we are going to now shift gears to our game to see if we how we're doing on that third target on succession. So I got to go back and get your guys's week at a glance real quick. So I'm going to use the same one I used yesterday just because I'd like to see if there's a pattern or not. First and third. These questions are very repetitive. So after a while, you should be getting 100%, but I did not see that happening in the other two classes. So we're trying to identify some misconceptions today. And I want to see how this group is doing. And then I'm also going to take attendance and check on videos while you guys are doing the game. Do this, do this. maybe. So 415-4438. There you guys come in. Okay. Sorry, I'm rearranging screens so I can see your faces again. There we go. Leo, where are you? Oh, there you are. I see you. All right, so I have 27 of you, and I should have 31 of you. So I need 2 more of you, unless you are struggling. Mia, if you're having problems, just put your answers in the chat. That's fine. John's taking a nap. No? Okay, you're good. Let's do it. Starts with bare rock and dirt. Must be created before any plants or animals can live there. Yes, primary. Anytime you see those words, bare rock, it is primary. Grassland changes into a forest. Yes, okay, good. So that's what we're supposed to see. So, glaciers melting to reveal rock. Okay. So again, anytime we see bare rock, we're gonna be primary. Whether that's lava flow that hardens or a glacier melting. All right, so bare rock becoming soil takes a very, very long time. The other one can happen really quickly. Just a natural disaster has to happen that wipes out the existing ecosystem like a fire. So the other one can happen quickly. What are lichens? You can choose more than one. I get you figured that out. Good. Yes, everything except abiotic. Good. Happens in less than 100 years, or can happen in less than 100 years. Good, Mia. Years. All right, graph or charts or pictures being interpreted. Okay. Bare rock again makes it primary. I'm gonna skip. Yes, anytime we have a natural disaster and soil was already pre-existing there, it's going to be secondary. Right, primary, secondary in the picture. The picture says exposed rocks, which means the same thing as bare rocks. Then our lichen and our mosses move in. Okay, so anytime we start on the left with bare rock, this is showing us primary. I'm not sure why we missed that. Explain yourself in the chat box if you were one that missed that, because I am confused. Let's skip because I think that's, yes. The weather or climate of an ecosystem is considered which of these? Yes, not living. So abiotic, the A or AN means without or to not have life. Volcanic island is being created. Which type of succession would this be? So we should have 100%. So let me know if this was a misfire or if you are still confused about bare rock and things like lava becoming bare rock. Weeds begin growing up through the cracks in a parking lot. Oh. Secondary, soil already exists. Doesn't matter if some cement's over top of the soil, it existed there already. So the only thing that counts as primary is brand new bare rock, lava or glaciers. Trees grow back after a tornado rips them up. Right, this is gonna be for the win since we are running out of time. I think that's 29. Yay. That's a good one to end on, 100%. So Luca got everyone right. Nice. So did Mina. And number one in terms of speed and accuracy is Heather. Very nice. And then we have Tommy and Shivan as runner-ups. Great job, you guys. If you have any questions about what's due on Sunday, don't forget that there are 2 tests in chapter 6, so we can move on to human population. Before you guys leave, how many of you are in hugs this year? Did we get our hugs numbers back up? Only one of you? Oh, bummer. Hugs makes this next chapter like super easy. You already know everything. So I guess Jason will be the only one that this is going to be quick and easy and painless for. All right, you guys, that's all. Anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I will see you in a couple days. All right, guys. Good job.
Thank you.
Don't forget to stop recording.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.